You've got the wrong order.
Okay, right, recording now? Hugh, we bump into each other from time to time on LinkedIn. You make some comments sometimes, I'll check you out what you're doing, but I don't know too much really about the business, other than we've got mutual interest in the subject, in the topic, in the material of graphite. So can you just give me a quick 101 on what you're doing, what Northern Graphite does?
We are the only producer of graphite in North America, and
Wow.
we've been producing graphite actually for more than 20 years. And we have a mine in Namibia, but we're just getting ready to get started. And we produce about 30,000 tons a year. And then we have a project that we have been advancing in Ontario, Bissett Creek, that will produce graphite in probably 2026, and we'll be able to produce as much as 100,000 tons a year. And we want to take that graphite and we want to process it to turn into anode material to supply the battery industry by building a facility in Baie-Comeau that will be able to produce as much as 200,000 tons of anode material, just enough to be able to supply, let's say, 4 50 gigawatt gigafactories.
Right, and this is a journey now of transition, if you like, for what you've described, your company, and what we're also seeing in Europe, which is all of it at the moment is basically about China, especially processing. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think 100% of the processing happens in China.
Correct.
Because there hasn't been a massive market for it.
Correct.
But now we're seeing that uptick in the market as there's the exponential growth of electric vehicles, you know, an increased need for stationary storage, and all of these things. That's, apart from any kind of geopolitical rebalancing, the reason that you're doing, and you've just described what you're doing, is because the market's going to be there.
That's right. If you think about it, you know, the graphite industry is very broad and diversified, but it's relatively small. If you take the US market, for example, you know, up to now, the whole market was about 100,000 tons.
Yeah,
And
the whole
so
market.
The whole market
Right.
was about 100,000 tons. And so, you know, what we're busy doing now is we have to scale our business from being a 10% shareholder of a 100,000 ton market, and we have to build the capacity to be able to supply the 1 million ton demand that is coming down the pipeline.
And that's the thing, it is coming at us. You know this book, don't you? The Great Race.
I do.
Levi Tillerman. I think you know Levi as well.
I've met him, but very briefly.
Yeah, I know him pretty well. So this particular book, written in 2015, and in many ways that predicts the future, which the future is now, as to where we are. This geopolitical imbalance in terms of the supply chain, the growth and development, the leapfrog of the Chinese auto industry into electrification. And now, as we see it, obviously it doesn't talk about things like the Inflation Reduction Act and the like, but it basically advocates that repositioning, if you like, of both the United States and Europe to rebalance itself with Asia. Not just, but particularly China. So how do you think we're doing in that? You know, are we getting there?
I think we're starting to get there.
Right.
I think it's not going fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think the transformation of the market is not as quick as everybody thought it would be, and I think we should have been acting faster. But you know, we can change the future, but we can't change the past. And
Absolutely.
so the way that I'm looking at it is, you know, being the only producer of graphite in North America and having been that producer for 20 years, I have to reinvest in my business in order to capture 10% of the future market. And for us to do that, we have to invest into growing our mines because the demand is much bigger. We have to invest in the processing, and we have to be ready in 26, 27 when these gigafactories start happening with enough material to be able to continue to grow and maintain our 10% share in the market.
Yeah, and I think what you're describing there, I think is one of the, I'll call it a conundrum, but a bit of a challenge in that you don't want to be there too soon. You don't want to be arriving at the market with a commodity that people can't use.
Yeah.
So the sequencing of this is really quite tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, and the
to be honest with
modularity
you?
of it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think this is really the intellectual challenge, because even when you're talking to the OEMs and the customers that want to use the material, they don't want to commit to the material until they need the material as well, right? So it's a very fine balance on how we plan for it. And the problem with the mining industry is that it takes anywhere between 8 to 15 years to create a mine. And with our strategy, what we've been able to do is we've fixed that problem.
Yeah.
We fixed that problem because we've got the mines.
Yeah.
And so now it's more about the processing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the processing is complex and you need to make it happen, but it's a lot easier to do that than to create a mine. And
Indeed.
so we have our 3 mines that are
Yeah.
ready to go. We can scale them, over time in order to meet the demand that is
Yes.
coming down the pipeline, and then we can bolt on the processing that's required to do that step by step based on the demand from the OEMs.
Well, as I think you know, I know a little bit about the processing side of things through a relationship with Urbix. And certainly what I equally know is the scope and scale of this market is going to be so big, we need a good number of companies involved in
Absolutely.
it. Because in the same way we can't just be reliant on China, we can't just be reliant on your company
Correct.
or just a couple of other companies. So I think the diversity of product offer of the overall proposition, that's what you're describing, isn't it? If I'm hearing correctly.
Yep.
Okay. Give us a final sense then of what you think will happen next, given there are twists and turns in all of this electric vehicle journey, but we are hurtling towards these points of 2030, 2035, where seemingly there's going to be a big shift and switch to EV. Are you hopeful that really is going to happen?
Oh, I'm not hopeful. I'm certain it's going to happen.
Good, so am I.
The question is, how long will it take?
Yeah.
But it will definitely happen.
Yeah.
I think once you start to drive an electric vehicle, you never go back.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
bought myself an electric vehicle.
What do you drive?
In January, a little Fiat 500e.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
nice.
I live in Italy, so it's the perfect car.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, you're probably, exactly, that's just bella figura. Is that what they say? Bella figura.
Bella figura.
Yeah,
And
wonderful.
it's convertible as well.
Oh, man, come on, it's just getting better all the time.
But have you ever driven an electric car that is convertible?
That's a great question. Let me think for a second. No, because there really aren't very many
There are
I
not.
can't think
There are
of.
not.
I can't think of one.
But it's wonderful.
Well, you're one, yeah.
It's wonderful. Do you know why?
Yeah.
Because it's completely silent.
Yes.
And it doesn't smell.
No.
Because there is no emissions.
No.
So the perfect convertible car is electric.
Perfect. Well, there you are. Well, on that perfect note, wonderful that you're bombing around Italy in a convertible electric car. How good is that? Well, with a roof open anyway. So yeah, good luck. Lovely to catch up with you because, like I said, we kind of sort of engage occasionally, but it's nice to sit down, have a chat, share it with some people, and go from there. So cheers, Hugh.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.